Hey guys, how's it going?
Going all right.
Hello. Pretty well. How you doing?
Good. I'm on vacation this week, so I'm just chilling right now. Needed a break for some work stuff. Just think about nothing for a while. I guess other than this.
It's always nice, isn't it? Just taking a little bit of time to chill.
Yeah. Yeah, we decided not to take like any trips or anything this year, so we can just like focus on paying off all of our debts and various things. So just a staycation.
I mean, that's usually what I'd go for, but I'm also kind of a hermit, so
I do like to hermit every now and then.
every once in a while, it's good for you.
Go ahead and share. We can wait to get started for a second. I went ahead and already created a inside of where I'm working today, which is module 4 day 7, wherever you're working. If you want to go ahead and create a new application, I just called my nested routes, and I'm just going to go ahead and run npm run start to kick it off. We've got quite a few. It's 5:30. We'll go ahead and get started. Like I was saying, so I already went ahead and created a new project with Create React App. I just called it Nested Routes, and I'm in module 4 day 7 after class if you wanted to look through any of the stuff that I'm working through. So if you would go ahead and create a new project, maybe name it something similar. The goal for today is to kind of dive a little deeper into I think one of like the newer and cooler features of React Router. And that is just basically, we want to be able to build kind of nested routes where on a route I render some layer of JSX, some layer of a component. And then React Router will handle the like sub routing of that page and anything layered within that route. Hey, Zach.
Everybody, miss you all.
We only got 2 classes left, and Zach's taking
Hey,
over
Zach.
again this one and Saturday. We got a Jonas too. He's still joining. Sweet. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So I have this project built. So it's running right here, localhost 3000. Real quick, we had a question last time. npm start, npm run start, they are the same. Just for certain commands, it looks like test, start, restart, stop, all those things, there's just an alias where you don't have to say npm run start. But for any commands that are not those specifically, then you'll need to say npm run. And if you say npm run, it's the same thing as just saying npm start. It's just a shorter version. npm run start. Sweet. So that's that. Anyway, so I ran npm run start to get my server up. And I'm going to go ahead and just delete some of the stuff out of my app.js here because we're not going to need any of this. And then we also need to go ahead and install React Router DOM, as well as all of the material packages that we need. And so if we go React Router, start here maybe. Okay, it's just React Router DOM. So I'm going to open a new thing, cd into my my repository that I'm working in, which is pretty deep. So give me a second. ls module 4 day 7 and the nested routes project. And then I'm going to run this npm install React Router DOM so I can install that library. And while that's running, I'm going to go look up the material UI docs to install. Whoa, she's big. 10. And we'll just copy this from the installation guide, run the same inside of this package. Sweet. And so React.DOM added 3 packages. This one added 36 packages. And now we should be able to do both of those things. And so let's go ahead and look into our app. I deleted everything. So then inside of here, to make sure that we have React router, let's say const router equals create browser router. And then we're going to import that. Like that. And then inside of here, we're going to need an array of objects. And we're going to say path. It's going to be the home route. And we're going to say component. It's going to be what we're going to call a layout. And then over here, let's make a new file, a new folder, sorry, make a components folder. Make a new file for that layout component. And we're just going to say const layout equals this. And then inside of here, let's just go ahead and return a box and just call it layout for now from material. So it's a import, a box from material. We're just going to return this box. And for now, we'll just say layout and make sure we export our component. And then inside of app.js, we are rendering this layout on the home route. And then what do we need to actually use this router inside of our application? Does anybody remember from the last class?
You need that wrapping around your app, right?
Right, so let's look at the docs and see what that is called. So looking at their route components, hooks, I don't actually know where they keep it inside of this thing. Maybe I passed it. Here it is. So inside of our routers, there's this route provider component. Looks pretty similar to what we have here. We have create browser router, and then they're just calling that router provider that's getting imported from React Router DOM. And so we'll do the same. We already are importing from React Router DOM, so we can just say router provider right here and render, oops, where'd that come from? Router provider there. And this has a prop called router that we need to pass our constant here, also named router, and pass it into that property. And then now everything is correct here. We just need to import our layout component from our components file. And now we should have on the home route, we're just going to render this layout component. The router provider is basically telling it how to render this within our application. And you were using material to just throw a box there. Let's see what we're missing. I don't know that it's capital C component. That feels wrong to me. What does our documentation say here? Element. Okay. I was just following the autofill. Okay, now this should work. Sweet. So we've got a layout, and it's just in a box, in a material box. So we can check that to make sure this is huge. Okay. Yeah, so you can see it has a class of MUI box-root. So that's how we know that material is properly styling it. Also, it's like centered and has some layer of styling on it. So this component is being rendered on the home route. Let's go ahead and create a couple more routes. I'm just going to make one called contact. I'm going to make an element called contact. This is pretty similar to what we did last time. Just a couple of pages at the top level of the application. And we're going to make this one just called weather. And we're just kind of on this page, we're just going to kind of bake in some of the weather stuff we did before. And that will render the weather application, the weather component. So that's our components file folder. Let's also make a new folder and call it pages. Inside of pages, we're going to have the contact page, and we're going to have the weather page. These are both going to be just components, and for now they're going to be bare bones. We'll come in and add to them later. And so let's say the contact page, it's going to be an arrow function, just like it's really just going to be just like this. Ooh, my mouse is freaking out. Like this layout page. So we go ahead and copy it. Layout, and then instead of layout, I'm just gonna make all these say weather, and that should be good there. On the contact page, we're gonna do the same. Instead of layout, we're gonna say contact, and then app.js, we just need to import these. Okay, and so now on the home route, we're just gonna show this layout component. On the contact route, we're gonna show this contact component, and on the weather route, we're gonna show this weather component. Make sure that all of that works properly. Whoa. So we're going to go to contact. Now we're on the contact component page being shown. We go to weather. We're on the weather page being shown. That's all pretty familiar to what we did last time. The new piece is that we want to nest our components inside of this thing. So instead of at the home route, layout is not actually going to be at any specific route. It's just going to be at every route. And we're going to make all of our top level pages like /contact, /weather, things like that. We're going to make those nested inside of this layout component. And so we're going to go ahead and add a children property to this object. And we can delete the path from this. And so inside of children, it's going to also be an array of objects, just like this outer thing. It's going to be structured just like the outer one. And so instead of just defining these at the top level, we're going to move them inside of this children array. Don't need 2 layers of objects here. And so now the outside is going to be a layout, and the inside will be contact and weather, right? Let's go see what that does to our application real quick. And so we're on weather and we're showing layout, right? So on this route, we are showing just the layout component. We're not showing the weather component anymore. And then if we go to contact, same thing. We're just showing the layout component, not the contact component. And if we go home, there's actually no route at home anymore because we're not having to find it. So it is specifically looking for those routes that we have defined. So if I just go to this, right, it's not saying, like, it is catching on these routes. It is rendering these routes, but we're not actually telling it what to do. All we're saying is that render this element on each of those pages. And that's because this is nested. And so this is catching on everywhere. So no matter what the path is, as long as it's a path that matches, it's going to render this component. And so far, we haven't told this component what to do with its nested routes that actually could match below it. And so now we need to tell it, like, hey, how do we render the contact component or the weather component that are coming through below? And so how we can do that is just inside of this layout. We've got this box with layout. Let's go ahead and just put this inside of a typography. Oops. Take this, that in there. And then outside of here, we're going to actually put this inside of something called an outlet. And so this is coming from React Router DOM. And whenever it sees this outlet component, it doesn't take any props, you just say outlet. And whenever it sees this, it's going to take any nested pages, any nested components that it finds, and it's just going to render that whenever this component gets hit. And so whenever we call this component from the contact page, it's going to render the layout component because it's on the top, and it's going to say, I want to render this, and then whatever is nested, whatever matching path I have that's nested, it is going to determine what component should go here. And so this is basically telling it how to put it. And so we can put this outlet inside of a box, and we can style this box to, like, I want this content to be put exactly where I want it. So I could like tuck it up inside the corner if it's just going to go there. And you could put, you could layer this stuff, right? And so I could have a page that is here, contact page, and the contact page actually has children also. That will also have this. And then we could say, oops, not that. We could say path is some path. We would say like contact slash ID, like some specific contact ID, right? And then you could say element, and then render like some specific contact page. And then you need to give the contact component also an outlet here as well. So that way this component would know what to do with any children that come through here. We're not actually going to do any of this because I think one layer deep is plenty complicated enough, but just you could keep going and anything that has a child, you can use the outlet component from React Router DOM to render its children inside of that page. So we'll go ahead and delete this stuff and just leave it at this one layer of nesting. And so, yeah, so we're saying at the element layout, we're gonna render these children inside. And so let's see what that looks like now that we've added the outlet. So if I go home, I get nothing. If I go to contact, now I'm getting the layout and I'm getting the contact, right? And so now I'm rendering both components. And now if I go to weather, now I'm getting the weather component. And so we're rendering the top level component on every page that is in this like nested structure. And then that is just deciding how and where and when to render its children based on the path. Sweet. So let's go ahead and build upon this a little bit. So what would you normally use like this layout component for? Like a lot of times you'll see like every page in your application is going to have like a nav bar, the same footer, and they're all going to kind of function the same. And so we can use this layout component to just render all of that kind of stuff. And so that's what we're going to do here. And so instead of this box that just says layout, this typography, we're going to replace that with a nav bar. And then underneath the outlet, we're going to put a footer. And so we'll see exactly what that looks like. And so we're going to use material to do that. And so if we go into the components, we're going to look at, they have a component called the app bar. And this is kind of like their pre-built nav bar component. A lot of them have a button here, some sort of login thing. There's some really cool ones. This one has a few tabs. It has this menu that is built in. And that linked home whenever I click the logo. And it's also already responsive. And so what that looks like is if I do this, then this, you'll see like the menu items went away and it added the hamburger menu to it. And so I extend it, then it automatically changes, the hamburger menu goes away and expands those items into the bar itself. And so this is good for us to start building responsive components into our applications. And they've already kind of pre-done a lot of the complicated logic for us. And so we can just copy this code. You open with this carrots here, shows all the source code here. It is kind of a lot, but it's not really as much as you would think. So we're just going to copy all of this stuff into a new component, and we're just going to call it a nav bar. And we're just going to say const. Well, before we do that, let's just copy their whole component, and then we can just call it what we want. So instead of responsive app bar, I'm just going to call it nav bar for my own component. I'm going to turn this into an arrow function instead of a regular function. And then currently we're not exporting this because we changed the name. So I'm going to make this nav bar. And then let's go ahead and look at some of the stuff that's inside of here. So they've got some weird looking stuff in here. I don't know what this is.
You copied the TypeScript one.
Oh, did I? Yeah, there we go. Okay, I was like, this is funky. We'll just rename this again. Nav bar. Make this into an arrow again. Sweet. Okay, so now it looks like something we're more familiar with. And let's just leave it like that, and we'll just see what it looks like. So instead of saying layout here, we're just going to import the navbar component, and then we'll look at some of the pieces that are inside of it and how it's working. So we're just going to render our navbar. Shouldn't be needing anything else from us. Can't resolve movie icons. Okay, so I need to install this package. We installed material, but not the icon library. So let's go in. So I'm still in our root level of my project nested routes. And so I'm just going to say npm I install at movie icons dash material. Sweet. Okay. Now if we refresh.
You need
that
to
should-
install the menu as well, right above where your cursor is highlighting.
This one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the right one.
Let's see what this is saying. I think I'm going to try to delete this import statement. And where is my, there it is. Instead of menu icon, let's just say menu. What is menu icon? I'm not sure what that means. Let me clean up these imports because this is kind of crazy looking. So we're going to say import tooltip from at movie material, and then delete this. And we'll just do this for all of them. So menu item, button, avatar, container, menu, typography. I'm just going off the list up here. Icon, button, box. We've seen a lot of these. And then we can delete all of these. And then did I add a menu item? Yeah. Okay, let's see how far that gets us. Okay, and then that's that part. We need toolbar. And then I changed my, this icon needs to be menu. It says menu icon is what it was. Let's see what that should be. If we go out of our mode here. Go to components, go to the icons. I think I passed it. And let's see what they were using. They called it menu. So looking for this hamburger menu. Not sure. Is that not what I installed? Let me check my package JSON. Yeah, that should be the right one. I'm thinking that I just need to fix my import here. So menu from at movie icons material. So that's right. It's just going to have the same name as this. And so we're just going to rename it to menu icon. And then use that here. See how far that gets us. And then ADB. I'm not sure what that is either.
ADB is the weird little bug default icon they're using.
Okay, let's see what that looks like here. ADB, yeah, it's like an Android, maybe something. Not exactly sure what that stands for. But yeah, so I can import that same thing. So they have ADB rounded, sharp, whatever we could say rounded. And actually, instead of doing this, we could actually just import menu rounded like that. Yeah. And so instead of menu icon, we can say menu rounded. And then delete this so that this will error. And now this can just be ADB rounded. All right, now let's see if we're working. ADB icon. Using it in 2 places. Sweet. Okay, so now I've got a nav bar. Looks like we're zoomed in pretty far. And so it was already in the small mode. And so this has got 3 menu items: products, pricing, blog. Let's change this instead to be our routes here. So we've got weather and we've got contact. And so let's see, pages and then settings. Also, there's an array of settings that are these items here. We're not going to update this or worry about those pages too much here, but that is a menu that already exists for us. Also, if I go mobile, I still just have both of these menus available. Sweet. Okay, so then let's update these. Instead of products, we're just going to say contact, and just delete this one, and then pricing, we'll just say weather. So we've got these 2 pages now, and we need to make these be able to change our current route to one page or the other. So currently we're on the weather page. If I change this and go to the contact page, you see we're on the contact page now, and we still have the same nav bar here. So that's kind of the idea of what we're building, is that all of our pages are going to have the same layout structure built in, just with whatever the content of that specific page should be. I'm gonna go ahead and just leave the settings alone, but let's go ahead and look at some of the stuff that they have here. So they have 2 state values, the nav and the user, and they are just saying whenever you open the nav, I don't know why it's not, it has a new line there. When they open the nav, we're just setting this nav element to the event.current target. So we're just, that entire element, we're just setting it to that. And then anchor element nav, we're using that on the menu itself. This is a special component that uses a specific element to latch onto from the DOM. And so we're setting the state value to the actual element that was clicked from this event. And so in this case, I'm clicking on this this element here, and then I'm setting the state to that actual element so that this menu component knows exactly where it needs to show up. And then whenever I click off, it already has by default a functionality to remove that state on close. And so whenever we see handle close user menu, it's saying set that state to null. So we're setting it back to null. I'm going to update this just to be similar to how we have done it before. Oops. Man, we're struggling. Import use state from React. Do this. Doesn't like that. There we go. I don't know what it's doing. Let's see if we can just get rid of this. Okay. Sweet. So that's what this menu is doing. It's all of this stuff right here is opening and closing those 2 menus. The nav menu only is available on the mobile. That's this item or this item. And then on this page, we're saying render this at bar. We're calling it position static. We're putting them inside of a container, which again is the same component that centers everything and puts the margins on the sides to give it a max width. And so this case, we're passing a special prop XL. What that should be doing is if I zoom out, then yep, if you had a super wide monitor, something like that, then it would limit your app bar to these sections here. So it stays in the middle instead of flexing all the way to the outside the entire time. Responsivity kind of goes both ways. It's not always you're going down to mobile. You kind of need to think about bigger monitors sometimes. And so the easiest way to do that is to just hit your command minus key or your control minus key, I'm guessing, on Windows. And this basically simulates if I had a 4,000 wide monitor. And so you can kind of see how it adjusts to bigger sizes as well. Let's get it back to 100. There we go. Okay, inside of here, we also have this toolbar. Has disabled gutters. Let's kill that and see what happens. So it's just messing with some of the margin. All of this stuff is just built in to all the styling stuff is built into Material. So we're not super worried about how all this stuff is styled. They're using a lot of the SX props instead of passing the props directly to the box. But remember, you could pass all these props directly. So instead of SX here, you could say flex row is 1 like that. And you could say display is going to be an object. So we need 2 curlies and you can pass it the same thing. Oops, extra small. It's going to be flex and mark. Medium is going to be none. I almost said markdown. Let's delete that. Oh. So this should work exactly the same. And you'll see this a lot whenever you're trying to do responsive design. So you don't have to run any media queries or like run something. You have access to the media queries that Material is using. But this using this style XS or medium to style components, whether they should show or should not show using the display property is super common. So you don't actually need to like say, whatever, whenever I'm at this size, don't show this component anymore. You can just use this display. And so on extra small, we're going to say display flex. And on medium, we're going to say display none. And so I assume that there's another component that is the reverse that will say on extra small, display none, and medium display flex or box or static or whatever it needs to be. Block, not box. So that it will show it. So this, in this case, this is going to be our menu here, this whole box. And so this is saying whenever we're on the small screen, show the menu. So that's this item here. So we're on the small screen, we're saying flex is static. We go to the big screen and now display is flex. We go to the big screen, now display is none. And so we're using the media queries built into Material to hide and show that using the box component. And so that's a pretty useful way to do responsive design. So we also have these nav items that are hiding and showing based on our screen size. I assume we're doing something that's similar. So let's find the contact on weather stuff. So here we have pages.map. It's inside of this menu. And yeah, here we have the same SX. Man, there's too many XS's and SX's. SX, we're saying display is block, and on medium, we're saying displaying is none. And so we're doing the reverse. Whenever we're on mobile, we are showing the hamburger menu and hiding these. And we're on desktop, we're showing these and we're hiding the hamburger. Sweet. Does that make sense to everybody? This is super common to just like, instead of saying, if I have this value and like my current screen width is less than this value, and like trying to write all of that logic yourself, you can just use the CSS styles and their built-in media queries built into Material using the display property. Sweet. There's a lot of other stuff in here, like they're using just typographies to say this logo and stuff, and they're making the little bug. We don't really care a whole lot about that. Not sure what I was looking at earlier. Oh, I was actually in the wrong thing. These down here are the actual things. So it says display extra small is none. So hide them on mobile and on medium. display as flex, so show them again. And these are going to be the actual pages that we're mapping through. I think the ones above were the pages that were getting mapped through, yeah, into menu items. And so when we're on mobile, then we're going to show this menu. Sweet. Awesome. Okay, so now we have a nav bar on both of our pages. We want to highlight the page that we're on. And so in our case, we're on the contact page. So we want this to just be like a little bit bolder and bigger. And so to do that, we can come into here. So we're saying settings, we don't want to look at that, this one. Not that one, this one. So we've got these pages inside of this box and we're wrapping these buttons. And so we basically want to say if the name of this button matches our current location, then we want to highlight it, which is actually the same thing we did last time. And so we can kind of just look at that and copy it over. We've got this components, nav item. So we're saying use match, it's got a path. And in this case, we have list item and list item text. And so we're just going to say, we're just going to copy this over, I think. And close day 6 and day 7 inside of our component again. Let's write a new component, and it's going to be called new file. We're going to call this a nav bar item. Rename this to nav bar item, and it's going to take a path and a label. We're using match. If you don't remember from last time, use match takes in the path and is matching the number of segments that are hitting from our location. And so our path in this case is just going to be /contact, and our location is going to be /contact. So it's 100% match. And so this is going to be equal to a patch math object. And so if it matches, then it's going to be that object. And if it doesn't match, it's just going to be null. And so we're just determining if it is matching, we're going to set it to a color. And then if it's not, it's unset. Sweet. So then let's go ahead and implement this inside of our other component. So instead of list items, we're just going to copy these. And we're just going to put this in here. Put some stuff around it for now so that it will not yell at us anymore. We need to import a button. We don't need a key anymore. We will need an on-click. We can define that in a second. We have this SX already displaying. And then we have this page. And so what we need to carry over is that the button, we need to just say component. I think this takes, maybe not. Easier than a component, since we want this to be a React router link and not an actual button. We want to just copy over this list item. So we can actually, instead of using the button, we can just use this thing, the things that we already have here. And we actually don't need this on click necessarily, close nav menu. I'm not sure that's necessarily necessary. I'm not sure that we need this because this is on the this is the group that it will be displayed on the desktop version. But I assume that it's a button, so they just wanted to have an on click on it, and so it does something whenever they click this button, but that state is not actually going to be usable on desktop anyways. Okay, and so we just need to make this instead of use this button to use our nav bar item component. And so let's go ahead and import that nav bar item, and this nav bar item will use a path and a label. And so this right now is calling page. Page is just a string. It's just pages, so it's contact and weather. And so we need to kind of update this object, this array, to use something similar to what we were using. That way we can know exactly how to render it. And so in our case, we can just turn this into an object. I don't know that I did this. I might have had one that looked already like this last time. dashboard app. I don't think I mapped through them last time. Okay, so let's make an object here. Let's just say that we want to match these props that we're passing down below into the navbar item. And so if we click into our navbar item, we're expecting path and label. And so up here, all of these are going to be our labels. Make this an object. We're going to say a label. Then we're going to give this a path. And it's going to be slash contact. It's going to be a path. Whoa. Slash weather. Sweet. And so now whenever we're mapping this, instead of being strings, it's going to be these entire objects that they're going to get passed down. And so here, this should be an entire object. I see now it is updated to say label is a string, path is a string. And so we can destructure those values here, label and path, and pass those down. If you didn't want to individually write them, you could just take these props and just spread them on, since we know that they're exactly 1-to-1. So like all of the label and path that exist here are going to get spread onto this label and path. So they are matching properly, but it's a little dirty because you don't exactly know. And then also if something gets added to this, then now we're passing this a prop that you know, aren't expecting. And so I think it's cleaner to just go ahead and just destructure this and pass them individually 1 by 1. But if you had like 15 props and you knew that they were all going to go, then you could just spread them on. You're just opening yourself to, more risk doing that. So label path. Okay. I feel like I've said label path a million times now. So pages, we changed what this object looked like, and it's getting mapped over. And so right here, instead of pages, this is now an object. And so we can't pass the entire object to these things. And so we're just going to update this to be the same object that is destructuring the label and the path. And so the key we'll just say is the label, and we're going to give this the label, and we'll have to update this on mobile to work properly also, but for now we're not using path. Come back down here, we've got our nav items, passing down the label and path to each of those items. We need to update this component to work properly. So let's delete this button now. I don't think we should need it. We're saying it currently has margin Y of 2, color white, display block. We'll see how much of that we need, and we can just update the styles ourselves afterwards. Let's just leave it as a list item. So we're saying if we have a match, we're gonna set this to red. Let's see if we can update this to be something a little better. And so instead of color, let's just do like font size is 1 EM. 1 EM. And then we'll make this like 1.2 EM. So it's just like a little bit bigger. Just highlight a little more. Okay, let's see exactly what that looks like. We do need to set this color to white overall. So let's just say color is going to be, white. Let's check what our issue is here. So font size, match 1, 2. Let's console log our match, make sure that we're hitting our match properly. Console, so we're on the weather, go to the contact. So we're hitting a match. You're seeing one is getting logged from one component, we're mapping over it. And so we're getting a null from the weather component now. We're getting a match from the contact component now. If we switch, now we're getting a null from the contact component, and we're getting a match from the weather component. What is my deal here? I think it's something to do with this list item text property. I wonder if this takes let's look at our styles here. It might be possible that 0.2 rem is not enough to actually tell. Let's not use M's. I was just trying to be cute. 16 pixels, 14 pixels. What's our deal here? List item text. Yeah, so it's got, this is our list item text here, and we're giving this our font size, but I think the span underneath is setting the font size itself to 1 rem. And so we're not able to overwrite it, looks like. In this case, there might be a property on list item text that will let us pass down styles that we want. So let's look at the list. List item. So we've got there's actually a selected property also. Maybe we can look at that. Check out list item button instead. Oh, this one doesn't have a selected prop. Man, this is deprecated, but I wonder if we can still use it. Let's see. So got this here. Let's just say it's selected. No, it doesn't like that.
There was a list item text type. Cause you're on list
Yep.
item. If you go back. To that.
Oh, primary typography props. I think this is what we're looking for here. So we can pass them down below. Let's see what that does for us. So instead of this, let's just say this. So we're going to give it these props to the primary, which is this label. And then this is going to be an object. And then we can just pass in this whole SX here. But instead of being a equals, we need it to be a colon because it's an object. And then we don't need double objects because we're already inside of an object. Let's see what that does for us. There we go. So now it's changed a little bit. We could make it a little more pronounced, but let's look at why they're super big all of a sudden. I think all we need to do is just say put this inside of a box. I'm just going to give this a max width of fit content or width of fit content. Sweet. And so now instead of spanning as far as they wanted, now they're just going to be as small as they need to be. And so now we've got somewhat of a notion kind of displaying the user. They're also kind of changing vertically. And so maybe we can do this is instead of a box. Let's change this to be a stack. Again, stack has display flex automatically set, and also flex direction is set to column, where you'd kind of expect the default to be row. And so let's set the direction to row because we want these to appear horizontally. We don't need flex grow really at all, I don't think. And then let's just copy this property here from the SX and pull it out on its own. Display, instead of that, we need to make double quote or double curlies. So this should work exactly the same now. What I'm looking for here is that I want to center it vertically so that what's not changing because they're different heights. And so I'm going to say align items is going to be center. So hopefully they'll be in line now. Oh, I think I might have got too much. Let's say flex grow is one. I don't normally use flex grow. Normally I would just say width is 100%, but it's effectively the same. I think we're being caught up by the line height here of the actual text is a lot bigger than the actual height of this container is. So even though it's kind of centering topped, and so I think I'd need to do something like text align center here. Say text align center, something like that. Yeah, there we go. It's pretty close. So now that I'm moving up and down, they're just kind of growing and getting smaller. Sweet. Okay, so that's, I think, enough on this. So now we have we're using the location and the match to make sure that we're, notated that we're on the right page. Let's go ahead and just throw a footer in too. We don't need a whole lot for the footer. Let's just add this to our layout component. So here, we're just gonna render a footer below this outlet box here. So let's go to our components, file, footer, JSX. Footer is going to be another component. We're just going to return a box, and we're going to import that, and we're just going to leave footer for now and export it. Make sure we get it onto the page. Go back to our layout and import it. We don't need this typography up here anymore. So now we've got a footer. Generally, you'd think the footer would be sticky to the bottom. So let's make that happen, right? And so this is all going to be a part of this. And so I think the easiest way to do that would be, I don't actually need all of this, so we can just make this just return JSX. I normally do that by making everything have height 100%. That way, anything inside of your app can use height 100% and feel good. And so we need to make sure that everything all the way up has the same height 100% because it's just setting to its parent. And so the layout is now height 100%. We also need to make sure that whatsoever rendering the layout is height 100%, which in this case is this div here. So we can just delete this. We actually don't need that. Go into our code again. That was centering our stuff for us with whatever CSS we had here, which is fine. Let's look at this app CSS. We want to make sure that everything, I think if we go into material, they'll have the reset for us. Let's see. Let's look that one up. Reset. CSS baseline. So let's look at that one. So this just gets imported and is used at your top level. It's up to you to decide where you can render. I could render that inside of my layout if I thought only my layout component would use that. You could also render it above. I think in this case, I'm just going to do it above because I think pretty much every single page in my application is going to want to use that. So we're just going to import the CSS baseline and see what that gave to us. There's a semicolon somewhere. Oh, right there. Let's see what that actually entails. Okay, gotcha. So that's actually setting this normalized CSS. So what we're actually looking for here is that our HTML and our CSS, or our HTML and our body, both need to have a height 100% also. So let's go into our app CSS and we'll just manually set that for ourselves. So let's delete this stuff, whatever that means. And let's just say HTML body It's height, hundo p. Let's look at our codes, our UI. There we go. Okay, so now the entire application is spanning the full width. And so whenever I say something is height 100%, it should fill the whole page. So I can delete this and then come here. So now this is the whole page, but we also want this box to fill the whole page. And so we can say height 100%. And so now it's going to be 100% of the page, potentially, or not. Height hundo p. What am I missing here? I normally just like look at a component, make sure that it has the right stuff and that it's going all the way up with this value, height 100%. So anything above it also needs to have that. Sorry, div ID of root doesn't look like it has it, so we need to add that also to our CSS. So HTML body, and then we're going to say ID of root. Okay, so now we've got this thing equal to 100%. The footer, it's 100% of the entire page, and the entire page is 100 VH. So like the entire weather container is 100%, and it doesn't care that there is a nav bar and a footer down here. Easiest thing to do that is use a flexbox to just like make the 100% function how we would want it to function. And so layout, I'm going to just change this instead of a box to be a stack. And then now it works kind of how you think. So now there's no scrolling to our page anymore. Weather is just going to fit inside of here all the time. And so let's make our footer look like a footer. I don't know if Material has any kind of like footer looking things. Let's see. Layout, box, container, grid, stack, image list, hidden, navigation, app bar, accordion card. We can just put it in a paper or something. I kind of wanted to have a shadow on it, like above, so that we can kind of see. So we could just say shadow, box shadow, going to be, can I give this my whole theme? Theme, return, theme dot shadows dot some number. Okay, so it's got some layers of shadows here. Let's go ahead and change it from being a box to be a stack. I'm obsessed with stacks, guys. I'm sorry. It's all I ever used. So as we're going to say, justify content is going to be center, so we can center the text. And we're going to say align items. Align items is going to be center also, so we can center it vertically. And then let's just give it some padding. Stacks, you can just pass in any of these styled props. In our case, we can just say P, and we're just going to say like 3. So now we have like a footer down here, and it's got some shadows above it. It's kind of a lot of shadow. Let's see what we can change it to. I logged out the theme so I could look at it. This is the entire theme object. We have shadows. That's like, here's like all of the values of those numbers. So it looks like the lower the value is, the lessened the shadow. So let's say, let's just go to, what are we using right now? 15. Let's just go to 4. Sure. So it's a lot better. Actually, let's match to whatever this is using. I wonder if we can. Toolbar, container app bar. I think it's the app bar that's giving it the shadow. So I can make this go up. Let's see what they're using. Box shadow is 0, 2, 4, -1. 4, nice. So we accidentally picked the right one, looks like. So we've got a matching shadow top and bottom. And so the footer, we could just say like, put some items in here. About, you know, I'm not going to make these actual links. You don't really need that now, but about contact, I don't know, issues, whatever kind of things we would normally have here. Direction is going to be the row. So we can make them the other way. Why do they look so ugly? Oh, because they're all filling a bunch of space. So then these list items, let's just make them all have a thing that's just going to say width is going to be fit content. And then we're going to use our flex box here to just say justify content instead of center. Let's say like space around, something like that. Space around. Okay, so now we've got this. So now when you zoom out, zoom in, we've got a pretty responsive thing here. If we go to mobile, then they're going to be pretty close. So you could just not show your footer on mobile or stack them vertically. We could look at that. So let's see, we're saying direction is row. If I wanted to change this, I think you can do the responsive properties here. And so let's say extra small is going to be a column, and then they're using medium to say row. So now this is stacked up. You can style it a little more, but I don't want to dig into it too much. But now it's kind of, you can use those properties anywhere you're using stack or box. They give you access. There's plenty of other components also, but stack and box are like the main things I use for layouts. So now we've got some layer of styles here. We also have a padding of 3, which is kind of a lot for mobile. So we can copy the same stuff here. And then extra small, let's say medium, we'll put 3. And extra small, you could just say like 1. See what that looks like. It's a little better, still kind of big. I almost don't want it there, but it's kind of simple. So generally you'd have more things layered, but I think it's good enough. So that's kind of the idea. So does anyone have any questions around just like the nested route or anything about how we're styling with material? Well, it is 6:30, and that's kind of the important things that I wanted to cover is that React Router handles all of this location-based stuff for you, and will real quick just to show. So we're using this element here, right? But if I wanted to make a new path here, and I'm just going to call this something else, and I'm just going to give this a div, so I don't need to write an entire another component. And I'm just going to write something else. So this is catching anything, but if there is something that's more specific, so like it's only running this because this contact path matches, right? If I had something else, then this path would now match, which is outside of this nested layer, and so it would render differently. So something else is my path. And so now if I wanted to build something outside of this, like say something like a login page that wouldn't normally have your header and your footer, then you could build that outside. So instead of something else, we could just change it to be a login page, and then you'd render your login component here. And then that wouldn't have your nav bar until you signed in. Oh, because I'm on the right path. Login. unsafe. Go there. And so like on this page, you would just render your login form and things like that. And you wouldn't need to have your app bar until you actually signed in. And once you signed in, you would redirect to your contact page, and then you'd be shown these components. And so we're using Material to conditionally render things and style things based on our screen size and our responsivity and things like that. And it's handling a lot of the logic behind that for us. We're using React Router to handle navigating between pages, as well as accessing, our current location to make sure things like this line up. And we're also using our current path to make sure that we're rendering the right content on the right page, but with the correct like nested layers of components wrapped around it. So anything that every page will need, you can write inside of one nested tree of components and use a top level component to handle that. Sweet. All right, well, that's everything I really wanted to cover for today. Does anybody have any questions, final thoughts about that? Awesome. A lot of this stuff is pretty new, so you might want to go dig around the documentation. There's so many things that React Router has made in like the past year or year or two that have really like changed a lot of how this stuff is working. Like all of the outlet stuff and like that, it's all pretty new. And so I'd go dig into it a lot and play around with it a lot, but really at the base level, you don't need to go in super deep to just build the most common things that you would need to build. And so we're really just focusing on the important things, your everyday use cases, things like that. Cool. Okay, so we don't have any homework. Saturday's our last class. So really just anything that you're not feeling super strong on, you might want to brush up on that and get ready for Saturday, making sure that you're good with use effect, use state, material, all of this new React Router stuff that we're talking about. And if you're already feel pretty confident on that stuff, then take a break before the final class. Sweet. All right, guys. Well, I will see you Saturday.
Thanks.
Great
Sounds good.
demo.
See ya.
See ya.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.